Welcome to part 2 of this series in which I show you how to create your own advanced JARVIS AI voice assistant using a tool called LiveKit. In this video I'm going to show you how to add a smart memory system to your AI agent so it keeps memory of your past conversations and also learns facts and preferences about you over time. I will also show you how to easily give it access to your most common apps. So for example, it can access your Spotify and play music for you. But let's just have a look at it with a quick demo. So here we have my AI voice assistant and we can simply start the conversation here.
Good evening. How can I assist you today?
Hi, I'm gonna go on a date later. I'm actually quite nervous. I just wanted to ask, I'm wearing a blue polo shirt. That's actually my favorite color. What do you say about that?
Ah, a blue polo shirt. A daring and bold choice indeed. Truly earth-shattering fashion. I'm sure it'll highlight your stunning personality.
Thanks for the advice. Gotta go now. Bye-bye. And if we now refresh this site, you can see here all the information I just specified, as well as the facts like my favorite color is blue and I'm going on a date later and I'm nervous. So if I start this conversation again, Jarvis, or in this case Friday, will remember what we just talked about.
Hey David, how are you feeling about the date? Anything I can help with to calm those nerves?
Actually, I already went on the date. Remember my outfit?
Ah, yes. The blue polo shirt. Hard to forget such a bold fashion statement. How did it go?
It actually went pretty well, and I'm in the mood for some music now. Can you skip to the next track on Spotify for me, please?
Check. I've skipped to the next track just for you.
If you haven't watched the previous part, you can find it here in the info card. And I would also recommend you to download the code base from it if you haven't done so already, because I'm going to continue where we left off. But not for every AI build, there's a dedicated tutorial for a backend like this that explains everything in much detail. And a lot of the times you just want to focus on the main functions of your build instead of thinking about how to deal with databases, hosting and authentication and stuff like that. And that can become a real headache. And this is where today's sponsor comes in, Skapi. Skapi is a serverless backend platform that gives no-coders, front-end developers and product teams everything they need, from authentication, databases, file storage, hosting, you name it. You can create anything from chatbots, to-do apps or even social media apps and deploy your backend on Skapi serverless within minutes. If you want to check it out, there's a link in the video description down below and you can try it out for free and you can see if it works for you or not. Now back to the video. So the first thing we need to look at is something called Mem0, which is an open source framework in order to give your AI agent long-term memory. So currently our AI agent or our Friday assistant is stateless, which means it doesn't save any data from past conversations. But with Mem0 we can change that. So let's say you had a conversation with your agent, you would have back and forth messages, what you said and what the agent said. And Mem0 is then able to actually summarize these conversations and extract relevant information from that. It is then able to turn those informations into memories and then save those memories into a database. It is then also able to classify those memories. So let's say I said my favorite color is blue, it is able to classify that as a personal preference. Or let's say today I felt sick, it is then also able to classify that as a health information, for example. And you can then use that information to, for example, start a new conversation and ask, hey, last time you told me that you felt sick, how are you feeling today? For this, I'm going to use the cloud version of Mem0. And again, it's an open source tool, so you can run it locally as well if you want to. But of course, setting up the cloud version is just way faster. That's why I'm using it for this tutorial. And for this, we need to Google Mem0 and then click on the first link. And then over here, we can click on Get Started, where you would need to create an account. And after you created your account, you can simply click on API keys over here. Then you can click on Create API Key. And then you need to give it a name. So let's say Mem0. Then click on Create API Key. And then you can simply copy it. And then we can go back to our implementation in Python. And then we can simply go to the .env file and add it here. We can say Mem0 API key, and then we can paste it here. Again, if you don't have this code base yet, you can simply watch my previous video and then download it and then come back to this video. And we would also need to install Mem0, of course. And for this, you can simply go to the terminal and then you can type in pip install Mem0 AI, press enter. I already installed this, so it didn't do anything. For you, it might take a little longer if you haven't installed it yet. So now I want to show you how Mem0 works with an actual example. And for this, we can create a new file. We can call it test mem0.py. And here I can paste some sample code that I already created and prepared for you guys. And this is how you would interact with Mem0. So here are just two very simple methods. One to add memory to your Mem0 database and another one to get the memory from the database back. So let's say you had a conversation with your AI agent. It would look something like this, where I just said, I really like Linkin Park. And then the assistant said, that's a good choice. And then I said, I think so too. And then the assistant says, what's your favorite song by them? The only really interesting information from this conversation would be that I'm a fan of Linkin Park, right? And we can then add this to the memory or to Mem0 by using this simple add method. And then we can also link it to a specific user. In this case, that's me. You can just give it either a ID or simply a name. In this case, my name, David. And then it will take this conversation and simply extract only the relevant information from it. And we can actually test this out. I can save this, I can go to the terminal and I can type in Python test Mem0. Now it added the conversation to the database and also Mem0 extracted the correct information from it. So when we go back to the browser and then we click on memories over here, you will now see that I have one entry in here that says that's less than a minute ago when it was added. Here's the user that it is linked to, and here's the information that was extracted from that conversation. We can only see here that I really like Linkin Park. All right. What we can then do is also extract that information back so we can load it back into our AI agent so it will have access to this knowledge about me. So now we can go ahead and test out the other method, which is called get memory by query. And the way this works is that, like in any database, you would use a query in order to access data. But in this case, we use natural language in order to access the data. So I can say something like, what are the user's preferences? And then it will use a search method, takes the query, and also uses the information or only looks for the information about the one specific user, which in this case is David, so me. And then it will be able to fetch that data, and then we just simply print it so we can see what it is. So we can try this out again. And you can see here the memory user really likes Linkin Park. And that is the thing that we can then add to our JARVIS or Friday assistant, that it will then have access to all of the memories of past conversations and also my personal preferences as well. So the first thing we need to do is that we would need to go back to our agent.py file, and then we would need to add some more libraries. For example, here we had to add something called chat context, and of course we have to also add something from Mem0, which is the asynchronous memory client. Then we also have to import JSON and also logging. And down here, let me just, actually I want to put this up here. And now we have to, of course, initialize our Mem0 client so we can interact with it. Then I also can specify some username, which is my name, David. And then I have to retrieve from Mem0 all the information about this user. And then what I also have to do is I have to initialize a initial chat context like that. And I also have to initialize a memory string, and I keep it empty. Then I have to loop over the results and only extract the relevant information for me, because if you get all the information about a certain user from Mem0, there's a lot of different things that you get here, and the only thing that we want is actually the memory itself and when it was updated, so the timestamp when it was last changed. And then we turn this memory string, or we create this array of memories, and then we turn that array into a consecutive string. We log what the memories are, so I can see what is inside of them. And then we have to also add this to the chat context. And actually I want to change this a little bit. I want to put it like this. This is memory string. And then I also have to give this now to the AI assistant, and for this we have to change the assistant's class a little bit. Here we have to say chat context equals none, and then we have to initialize the chat context with the new chat context here, and then we also have to give it the initial chat context like this, so like that. So what happens here is that I load the memories into the chat context, which is basically all the information about the current conversation, and that is then loaded into the AI assistant, which is therefore able to access all of the memories or all the information about the user, which in this case is David. Alright, that's already it, so I can save this, Control S. So the next thing we want to do is we want to create a function that allows us to save the conversation history into Mem0 at the end of a conversation, so we can create the memories out of that. And for this we need to create a new function here, and this is going to be a asynchronous function that we can call shutdown hook, because we are going to call this once we shut down the AI agent, or the conversation at least. And for this we need to give it the chat context as well as Mem0. And the next thing we need to do is we need to log this, so we can know that this is starting. For example, I forgot this. And then I would need to create or initialize a messages array, so I can put our messages into it. Then I would like to log what happened in the conversation, so I can see all the messages. And then I have to put them into a correct format, so I can then save them into the database. For this I need to write content string equals join item content if instance of list else string. This is only putting it into the content of the message into a correct format. And the next thing we need to do is if role in user is if we get the user or the assistant role, so a message from the user or the assistant, then we filter it out and we put it into the messages. But I need to write strip here. And then I would also like to log this. And then I have to add this to the database as well. And then I log that this actually worked. I can save this. And the next thing I would need to do is I have to call this function at the end of a conversation. So I can write something like shutdown callback. Then I can call it with lambda shutdown hook. This should actually be underscore agent. And here I just pass the conversation history, so I can extract the information out of it. And then I have to also pass the Mem0 client so I can access the database. But actually I also have to pass here the memory string. And I also have to process this here like this. And then I also have to filter out any messages that include this memory string. Not like that, but like this. Memory string. The reason why I have to do this is the memory string includes all of the past memories that we loaded in the beginning, right? So if I don't filter it out here, you would always resave those past memories, and of course we don't want to do that. And actually, I also messed this up actually here. That's a error on my part. And also I want to change this to assistant. Okay, hopefully this works now. Now we can try this out by going to the terminal and starting our application in dev mode. Now it's up and running. And we can either use the playground again to test this out, or we can use my custom created UI for this, which I have right here. I simply took one of the sample applications from LiveKit and then I customized it a little bit so it looks more like from the movies, right? I can show you how to do this in one of my future parts. But for now, we can simply try this out.
Hi, my name is Friday, your personal assistant. How may I help you?
Hi, what do you know about my music tastes?
Ah, yes, you have a fondness for Linkin Park, a band that certainly knows how to make noise. I mean, music.
Wow, that really?
I do try my best to observe and recall, even if your taste in music is questionable, David.
Okay, did you know that my favorite color is blue?
Check. I will make sure to remember that your favorite color is blue.
Alright, I also have an upcoming job interview and I'm quite nervous. Can you give me some tips about that?
Roger, boss. I will now search the web
Now don't
for
search the
job
web, just tell me some tips.
Check. Here are some tips for your interview. Research the company, practice common interview questions, and dress professionally.
Alright, that's actually quite good advice. I'm gonna use that. Thank you. Bye bye. Now if we go back into our application right here, we can see down here that it actually was able to, here we can see all of the messages that we exchanged. And here we can see that it also saved that into Mem0. Now let me zoom in for you here. So here we can see the messages, right? And here that it inserted that into Mem0. And if we go back to Mem0 now, and then we refresh this site, we can see here what I just talked about. So here I said that I have an upcoming job interview. And here I also said that my favorite color is blue. And here I also actually put in the information that my name is David. So to summarize, I know this one was quite a lot, but it's actually quite simple the way I do this. So in the beginning, we load all of the past memories into the AI agent once. And then when we end the conversation and we call this shutdown hook, we also only once save all of the data from the conversation into the database. So therefore, we only access the database 2 times, once in the beginning and once in the end. Therefore, we minimize any delays that we might have. So there's one more thing I want to change before we proceed, which is the prompts.py file. I just want to tell our AI agent how to better deal with past memories. So for this, I want to change the agent instruction a little bit here, which I already prepared something here. So what this tells our AI agent is how the data is going to be structured, how past memories are structured. So they're going to include the memory themselves as well as a timestamp of when they were last changed. So let's say I asked the agent about a certain thing that I said in the past. So I ask when did I say that? It is then able to answer based on this timestamp here. Another thing I want to change actually is the agent, the session instruction here. So it sounds a little bit more natural. So here is a updated agent or session instruction. So let's say you talk to your friend about one of your upcoming job interviews and you say that you're quite nervous about it. Naturally, the next time you would talk to your friend again, he would ask about how the job interview went, right? So I want something similar for our AI agent or our Friday agent, so it sounds a little bit more human. And in this instruction here, I tell it to look through the past memories to see if there are any open-end informations. And if there are any, then it should ask about it similarly to how the friend would do it. So it sounds a little bit more natural, right? And for this, we can simply save this now. We can start our AI agent again. And now I can go back to the browser. Well, let me see if it already started. Now it's starting. Now I can try this out again.
Good evening, boss. Considering your upcoming job interview, How is the preparation going?
I actually already had the job interview. It went quite well, thanks to you and your advice.
As you wish. I am happy to hear that the job interview went well, mainly because of my advice. What can I do for you now?
Not much. Actually, I just wanted to tell you that my favorite color now is not blue anymore, it's actually green.
Roger that, boss. I will update my records with the new favorite color. Your favorite color is now green.
Alright, that's actually it. See you later. Bye bye.
Farewell, boss. I'll be here whenever you need me.
So as you could tell, Friday now asked about past information, the job interview, similarly to how a friend would do it. And if you go now to our memories, we can see that it added an additional memory here, which says, I thought that the job interview went well. And this is where the self-learning part actually comes into play, because it was also able to update past memories with new information. So if you look at this memory, for example, before that it says that I'm going to have a job interview. Now it updated it to I already had the interview. Not only that, but in the conversation I told it that my favorite color now is green. So it updated the past memory of my favorite color being blue to green here. So as you can see, over time it will be able to learn more things about you, your preferences, alongside the conversation that you will have. So now we want to give our AI agent the ability to access our most common apps, for example Spotify. But before we do this, I actually want to change our large language model from Gemini to some model from OpenAI. Because as some of you noticed from my previous video, Gemini sometimes is really inconsistent with calling tools. So even if you ask it to do certain things, it will tell you that it already called the respective tool for that, even though it didn't. So that has to do with Gemini itself. So because of that, I want to switch to OpenAI for this. So in order to do that, we have to go to the browser and get a new API key. We can Google OpenAI API key. We can click on the first link. Again, you would have to create an OpenAI account here. And then over here, you can create a new API key. We can call this Friday 1, and then we can create it. I can copy this. I can then go back to our implementation, go back to the .env file, and then I can paste it here. I can say OpenAI API key, and then I can add it here. And then I can save this, and then I can go back to the agent.py file, and here I can switch this out. I can say OpenAI real-time model, and then I can say voice is Sage. But here I haven't imported OpenAI here, so therefore I get this warning. So now it works. This is also a real-time model, so it also has very little latency. So it works very similarly, but the voice is going to be a little bit different. But again, the tool calling will now be much better. So in order to give our AI agent now the access to Spotify, I'm going to use an N8N MCP server for that. And if you don't know what MCP is, it's basically a unified protocol to expose tools to AI agents. In this case, I'm going to use a Spotify tool. And for this, we can actually use some sample code from LiveKit itself. And we can simply Google LiveKit MCP. And then we click on the first link. And here's an implementation that already implements a connection to an MCP server. And we can simply reuse this code. We can click on code and then download the zip file. And then we can open it in our download folder. We can then simply extract this. We can then take this folder called MCP client, copy it, and then we can go to our project folder, and then we can simply paste it in here. And then we can go back to our implementation, and over here now you will see that you have this folder. And now over here we can add some new libraries. I already prepared these. So what we need is from MCP client, the MCP server SSE, as well as the MCP tools integration. And we would also need to import something called OS. Then down here, we can add some new code. And we can write here assistant instead of video assistant. And here, instead of assistant class itself, we can write agent. So what we do here is that we create an MCP server connection through an N8N MCP URL, and then we enrich our agent with the tools that are exposed through that MCP server, which in this case are going to be some Spotify tools. That's actually already it. Now we can add our N8N MCP server. For this, we can simply Google N8N, then click on the first link. Most of you are probably already familiar with N8N. If you don't know what it is, it's basically a very popular AI-powered tool to create workflow automations. And here you would need to create an account if you don't already have one. And then you can sign in here. And then you would have access to this dashboard. And with this button over here, you can create a new workflow. Then you can click on this button here, and then you can look for MCP Server trigger. For now, we can simply close this. And to add a new tool, we can click on this button, and then we can look for Spotify. Here you have different options how you would want to configure this tool, but for now you would first have to add a Spotify account. For this you can click here and then click on create new credential, and then you can click on connect my account. Then you would need to specify your email address as well as your password. Once you did that, you are logged in, and then you have a new account added to this tool, and then you can select it. I'm going to select the second one. And here again are a couple of options how you want to configure this tool. For now, we can simply click on this button here because we want to add a song to a queue on Spotify. And the track ID should be automatically filled by the AI model. Then we can add a new tool, also a Spotify one. Now instead of adding a song to the queue, we can click on next song. There's actually a lot of different operations that you can select from. For example, you can set the volume, you can resume a playing track, or you can pause it, or you can go to the previous song. For now, I'm just going to click on next song so I can skip to the next track. Then I'm going to add a third tool. It's also going to be Spotify. Now I'm going to select track instead of player. And then I click on operation and I'm going to look for search. This allows me actually to search for the track ID of a specific song that I have in mind. And here I can also click on this button over here. So the AI agent uses or automatically fills the keywords that it's going to use to search for a song. And that's already it actually. Now we have to go back to the MCP server trigger. And then we have to go to production URL. And then we have to copy this URL. Then we can close this again. We can save this. And then we have to set it to active. Now we have to go back to our implementation. Here into the .env file. And then we have to write n8n MCP Server URL. And then we have to paste our URL in here. Like this. Then we have to save this. Another thing which we have to change is the prompt stop pile, so the agent knows how to deal with these tools. So we go to the agent instruction, and then I already prepared this actually. I have to add an instruction how to use the tools. So for example, if I say add a song to a queue, it has to use the add track to Spotify queue or add track to Spotify queue in Spotify tool in order to do so. Or if I wanted to play a certain song, it first has to ask what kind of song, then it has to search for it, and then it has to add it to my queue, and then it skips to the next track. And if I ask to skip to the next track, it uses this tool, of course, the skip to the next track tool. Okay, then we can save this again. And there's one more thing we actually have to install before we can use this, which is this actually. So we have to write pip install Pydantic AI Slim OpenAI MCP. Then we have to press enter. Now that's installed and we can use the MCP server. Now we can simply start our implementation. And then we can go to the Friday app again and we can try this out. So before you can start, you would have to have Spotify up and running somewhere and where you just recently played some songs. Otherwise the AI doesn't know where to play the songs for you. So just open it somewhere, play a song, and then it will be able to identify that place to play the song. And another thing that I added here was that my favorite song is Highway to Hell. And now I can show you how these memories or these preferences about me come in handy when we try this out.
Hey David, how's it going? How did you feel about the job interview in the end?
Can you actually play my favorite song on Spotify for me, please?
Blasting now.
I actually paused this because I don't want to be copyright, because I have the volume on. I don't want to be copyright striked. So yeah, so now it works. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. As always, if you're a business owner and you're interested in building an AI voice agent similar to the one that I demonstrated in this tutorial, or you're looking for some consulting surrounding AI voice agents, then feel free to reach out to me through the contact information in the video description down below. And if there's any feature you want to see in the future part of this JARVIS series, just leave a comment about it. On that note, thanks again for watching and I see you in the next one. Peace.